Call the meeting back to order. Before we have the Pledge of Allegiance, since our last meeting, we Topeka Public Schools family tragically lost a member of our district staff. Melanie and Scott Whitmore passed away, and I was reading the paper the other day, retired district employee, longtime district employee, Major General retired Jack Strukel passed away. And so this time, just join me in honoring their life and honoring the legacy that they leave behind. Thank you. At this time, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, tonight we have Ariana and Alejandro Aldape to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe their principal, Dr. Mejia, is online as well.
I am, Mrs. Wallace, proud.
All right, let's start the pledge. Are Ariana and Alejandro there?
Yes, we're here. Can you not see us?
I can. Okay, yep, there you are.
Okay. Alejandro's here. Ariana is not feeling well.
Thank you.
Prometo altear a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la República y representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Thank you. So, Dr. Mejia, would you like to share a little bit about our Alejandro Aldape? I believe he's the son of our.
Yes, it is my privilege. It takes a minute before I'm allowed to unmute, so sorry for the delay. Good evening, Dr. Anderson, board members, and everybody. Alejandro and Ariana are Scott scholars, as you know, and I can share that Alejandro is one of the sweetest children that we have, and they're all so sweet. But Alejandro is a good friend. Alejandro participates in class all the time. He is inquisitive, always is brave to ask for help when he needs it. He does it in a respectful manner. He shows his roar all the time. He's like always a captain in line for music class, which is a privilege. And he's just kind, smart, obviously a beautiful child. Ariana, she is also incredibly sweet. She's the quiet of the pair. Alejandro is the more outgoing child, but Ariana is also incredibly respectful. She's kind. She's super smart. She's a great partner. You should see her helping others. She takes leadership roles within her little groups or with the bilingual pair. These children are true gems in our school, and I personally love them, and I've known them since they were in their mom's belly. And I just have loved watching them grow and develop into the amazing little human beings that they are.
Thank you. And their mom is our new assistant principal at Landon, Thelma Galvez Aldape. So, thank you. And we really appreciate you saying the Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are we ready to move on to highlights?
Nope, we got one more item first, I think. At this time, the chair entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
It's been moved. Is there a second? A second, is there any discussion? Ready for the vote?
And the vote is open.
Okay, now we're ready for school highlights.
And now with school highlights, we've made it to one of our favorite parts of the meeting, school highlights. And tonight we want to recognize our October Senior of the Month, Miss Jackie Ortega. Please join us in watching this video.
Come on up, Jackie. Seriously. So you're our the 501 district student of the month for October.
I spend every day here, like all day. People ask what hobbies I have. My hobby is literally just school. I love being here.
Jackie's just one of those individuals that's involved in everything in the school, from cheer, band, Stuco, class president. She's a mentor for other students.
She's involved across the board in many activities all over the building, and she's very intelligent and articulate.
Jackie does not have the word no in her vocabulary. She says yes to everything willingly and wantingly, and she's very talented.
Highland Park is like my home. I love it here. It makes me really happy. So being around all my peers and teachers, it just like makes me really happy. It's like my happy place.
I think the best story is the video that she did last year where she walked around the building, different staff and students, that they were beautiful, just to see their reaction, to catch their reaction.
Using the word beautiful, I felt like it was the perfect word to describe the students at Highland Park and just like anybody in general, whether it be inner beauty or beauty on the outside.
One of the things that know is what you don't know the background of most of those people that you told were beautiful, but there's going to be significant benefit for that. You may have saved somebody's life. It's that significant.
After high school, I plan on going into music and psychology. Either I was thinking about UCLA or probably just KU.
She is a leader. She's admired and well respected amongst her school peers and certainly amongst her gifted ed peers in the gifted resource room. Hopefully she will be joining 7 of her gifted alum in scholarship halls, all first generation on full ride scholarships presently at KU.
My advice to underclassmen is stay involved, enjoy these 4 years, like just do as much as you can while you're here.
Miss Ortega, she's such an inspiring young lady, and we're so proud of her. And I believe she's on. And I also believe that Mr. Buckendorf is on with us tonight, and we're going to turn it over to him if he would like to make a few comments. Mr. Buckendorf.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Gray and members of the board. What more can I say about Jackie that the video hasn't already said? Like the video project she promoted to let others know that they're beautiful. She's always looking for ways to make Highland Park just a better place to be for everyone. She's in our office probably 2 to 3 times a week, just advocating for others in numerous ways and trying to come up with different ideas of things to do at the school just to make it a better place. And she truly does. So we truly appreciate everything she does for us, and that's why she's our student of the month. With that, I'll turn it over to Jackie. And we got a small token of our appreciation for her that I think she wants to open up real quick online live for you guys. She hasn't opened it yet, have you, Jackie? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I haven't. So open it right now.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Oh.
She's
Tumblr.
It's her
Okay.
intention to go to KU next year, so we got her a few things to get her started in her career there next year.
This is so cute. Thank you.
Thank you for everything you do, Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Buckendorf, and congratulations to you, Mrs. Ortega. At this time, we're going to turn it over to the board for questions or comments.
My mother was Ortega, so. Congratulations. I can think of better school that you can pursue. Psychology, but I won't mention the name.
Jackie, I was also in a scholarship hall, and it was a wonderful experience. So you hopefully can look forward to that greatly. The other thing I wanted to ask is, what kind of music are you interested in?
The music I'm most interested in, well, I've been involved in like band and choir and orchestra since I was like 8 or 7. So I think like classical music. Yeah.
What do you play?
I play the violin, the flute, the piccolo, the guitar, the ukulele, and the piano.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Very good. We look forward to seeing you in the classical symphonies.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie, we are so proud of you. You just seem like an amazing young woman. And I'm curious if you have family around or anybody who is nearby to celebrate with you, with us.
I really don't. Not anybody right now.
Okay. Okay.
So Jackie, congratulations on this honor. Just a couple of questions. So have you been in Topeka Public Schools your whole educational career?
Yes, I went to Rawson Elementary School, Eisenhower Middle School, and now Highland Park.
So do you have a favorite teacher or two?
Favorite teacher?
Yeah.
I think overall, Miss Newman from Rawson to Eisenhower, she was the music coordinator, and she really inspired me to do music, and she actually taught me most of the instruments that I play now. And I still keep in contact with her, and she always was a big role model for me. And at Highland Park, from the day that I stepped in, Miss Watson was always there for me, and I know that whenever I need anything, I can always go to her. So Miss Watson and Miss Newman.
Those are good role models. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Again, congratulations, and look forward to your progress in the coming years.
Thank you.
And with our final highlight, we are going to recognize our amazing principals.
We are so excited this month to celebrate our principals. In fact, we're celebrating several groups, but throughout the entire month, principals are celebrated across this nation. And so tonight we have both Mr. Hare, the president of the Principal Administrators Association, as well as Ms. Hoffman, a principal and the vice president of the Administrators Association, who represents all the principals across Topeka Public Schools. We just want to say thank you to all of our principals for everything that they do, the leadership, the guidance, teaching in the classroom, serving in lunchrooms. We thank you, we celebrate you, and stay tuned. All throughout this month, we'll be giving out fun facts about these amazing leaders. Without them, Topeka Public Schools would not be able to engage, prepare, and inspire. Thank you for your world-class leadership.
I know that many of our principals have joined us tonight as we celebrate National Principals Month. And now we're going to hear from our president and vice president of the Principal Association, Mr. Hare and Mrs. Hoffman, who will read the proclamation. Mr. Hare.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here. We always love to come to our board meetings. So Ms. Hoffman, I will read the proclamation. Proclamation of Topeka Unified School District number 501, National Principals Month, October 2021. Whereas a principal's leadership is a crucial element needed to ensure the academic success of Topeka Public School students. And whereas school principals and assistant principals are responsible for the day-to-day operation of their school, which includes supporting students as learners, overseeing the effective implementation of student-centered programs, building meaningful relationships with students, families, teachers, community partners, and others, and nurturing a student-focused school culture. And whereas school principals and assistant principals are instructional leaders working with teachers to establish high expectations for all students and promote the use of effective and appropriate classroom practices. And whereas principals and assistant principals work diligently to create a positive school climate that is inviting to students, families, and the community, as well as provide a safe and supportive environment where students learn, grow, and achieve.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Unified School District 501, Topeka, Kansas, does proclaim October 2021 as National Principals Month. The board encourages citizens to join in the celebration of National Principals Month by thanking all school administrators for their care and concern they show our children. Topeka Public Schools proclaims October 2021 as National Principals Month. And be it further resolved that the copy of this proclamation be included in the minutes of the Board of Education meeting October 7th, 2021, in witness whereof we, the staff of Topeka Public School District number 501, do hereby affix the signature of our board president and the official seal of the Board of Education the 7th of October, 2021, signed by Reverend John R. Williams, President of the Board of Education.
Again, on behalf of Dr. Anderson, we would like to say thank you to our amazing principals. And at this time, we're going to turn it over to our board for questions and comments, and we will conclude with our highlights.
Dr. Morrison.
I have had the privilege of being a principal for a day, and I can tell you that these principals do much more. I mean, their days are long. Their weekends are taken. They are on call all the time. They are amazing people, and we truly appreciate you guys.
Thank you. I just want to say we appreciate the support of the board and district leadership. And, you know, we really couldn't do it. I think I speak for all of my colleagues. We really couldn't do it without the amazing staff that we have in each of our buildings that really are the true boots down on the ground, ready to work and serve our children, and with the support of our parents. So it takes a whole team and village to do this job. And I know it's my pleasure to get up every day and head over to French Middle School and serve the Falcons.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Dr. Morrison's comments. What you all do is incredible. And I'm in awe, really, because I know, like what he said, you're going to games and you're getting calls on the weekend. You're doing so much. So I have a question. And whoever wants to answer, what makes you want to be a principal?
Mr. Hare, you want to take that one?
Oh, that's a very good question. You know, I arrive at the school every morning and I think to myself, you know, there's 540 kids. There's about 100 adults. Each one of those kids are affected by, you know, at least a couple people at home. So just the awe of about 2,000 people that I can influence just by my actions day to day and just making someone's day better. And just that influence that we can have that you don't normally think about. But that's every day when I show up to school, I think about the greater influence that I'm going to have even beyond the walls of the schools.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. And when I was a classroom teacher, it was just always exciting to get into your classroom and see the excitement, engagement of the students within the 24 students maybe within your room. Now as a principal, my classroom is even bigger. It includes all students and staff. And it's amazing to walk around to classrooms and see the energy that is there. Our day is never while it may be scheduled when we walk in that front door, I've yet to have a day that is scheduled the way that I had planned it. But it's certainly but that's what I love about it, the flexibility, you just never know what's going to happen. That kind of excitement just kind of keeps you going and keeps us on our toes. And if you can remain flexible and keep your sense of humor with you, it's really one of the greatest jobs ever.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know you do so much more than being just a principal, like helping staff find apartments. I know Mr. Hare was helping a new Topeka teacher find an apartment and was like FaceTiming to show this new teacher an apartment, things like that. And that's just one of a million extra little things that you all do. And thank you.
Anyone else? Again, thank you and your fellow principals for all the work you do to make Topeka Public Schools the district that it is.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Gray, back in your hands.
Close our highlights.
Thank you. Any public comments? No comment. All right, at this time, the chair will entertain a motion by consent.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special project and purchasing contracts for and on behalf of the board.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Seconded. Is any discussion? Yes, Dr. Mickelson.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. Just a comment. We went over the expense of replacing musical instruments for the district loaner program at our finance committee last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess. And I recognize the issues COVID presented when we stopped school abruptly and kids had musical instruments out, but we're paying $42,000 to replace 9% of our musical instruments that were lost. And I'd just like us to figure out a way to incentivize those students and their families to return those instruments if possible, without punishment, and still encourage our kids to be able to participate in musical education if they have financial hardships that would prohibit them from purchasing an instrument or renting an instrument. But I just think we can't continue to make this kind of expenditure for instruments that don't come back. That's just a lot. So, and my guess is it's probably not consistently this high, and COVID created some problems with that, but it's still a significant sum of money. So
That was
I
good.
don't know what we can do differently, but
That was going to be my,
I'm not sure you're on there, Dr. Albright.
And what did the Chromebooks cost us?
I want to say it's $250 for a Chromebook. That's what we charge the students, I believe.
But then we lost a lot of money having to replace a whole bunch of Chromebooks, didn't we?
We did, but we replaced them with some grant funds from different entities. For example, the Commerce Department provided the original Chromebooks that went home. And then we've sought some additional Chromebook expenditures to be covered by the FCC's Emergency Connectivity Fund.
So basically, the students that lose instruments, damage Chromebooks, lose Chromebooks, there's no repercussion to them. It's freebie, no skin off my back. There's a lesson to be learned here, but we're not teaching it.
We do charge their student accounts in Tyler Sys for the Chromebooks.
And my iPad from work just quit working, and I don't know what I did wrong with it. But I mean, I don't know that, some things just quit working, but beat up in my backpack is my guess. But I just, I want to encourage music education. I don't want to discourage that at all. That's not my intent. It's just I don't know, the analogy I've used is a free puppy versus a $20 puppy. People take better care of a $20 puppy than a free puppy just because they've got a little investment in it. And I don't know if we ask for a little bit of and they get the $20 back when they return the instrument or what, but.
So Dr. Mickelson, if I may, perhaps what we'll do is just come up with a little plan, one of which can be to just put a deposit down and they get the deposit back. We do charge them. And then, and there are, so though at the very end of the year, families generally will make good on their, whatever their fees are before the next year. So it's much like any other fee, but we'll go ahead and put something in place, share with the board, and then track it for this year and next year so we can see the impact moving forward, both for Chromebooks as well as for fine art. So thank you for that. We'll put a written plan in place and share with the board the next meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. I appreciate that.
Anything else?
All I was going to ask was that my understanding was that this was related to COVID, which is not the normal in terms of the loss of or misplacement of musical instruments. And so it'd be interesting to look at, in years past, and you know this, right? And computers on a regular basis, just like you said, have to be returned, have to be updated, and they get old and they stop working. My screen stopped working, I think, last year. And so our computers are updated and replaced regularly just because they get old. And the instruments, my sense is we probably won't see this again, but I think you make a point that we got to.
I agree. And I would assume that because of COVID, this is extraordinary, but I'm sure we have some expenses every year to replace instruments and stuff happens, but this is a large chunk of a new teacher's salary we could hire if we didn't have to do that. So I just want to be good stewards of the money that we're granted. So thank you.
I have a question. Yeah, so I know we're also voting on the COVID testing services agreement, and I was hoping to learn more exactly about what this agreement entails.
If I may suggest, and Ms. Cope, feel free to jump in. Is that something that we pull off of the consent and then put it at the bottom under discussion, and we can share a little bit more information about that under consent? Is that correct, Ms. Cope, for that discussion?
Yes, it can be removed from the consent agenda and discussed, and we can approve the remainder of the consent agenda and approve that one separately.
And Ms. Stewart-Campbell, that may take a little bit of explanation, who's doing it, who's the service, and those items. And then it'll allow us to answer questions as well outside of consent. So if I may suggest, that's pulled off of consent, and then we'll be prepared to discuss it at the end.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
So do we need a substitute motion?
A motion to pull that item. Apologize. Let me make sure. 14.1 for further discussion and approval, or further discussion and action.
Is there a motion?
Sure. So I move that item 14.1 be moved to a discussion item.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion on that motion? Ready for the vote? No, are we voting on the consent agenda, or are we voting on that motion?
The motion on the table is the.
I move the board approve the items of business by consent, but remove 14.1 to discussion as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign, because we're voting on everything else. We're just removing 14.1. That will be a separate item.
That acceptable to you, Ms. Cope?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Motion carries unanimous.
Next, superintendent's report, Dr. Anderson.
All right. Well, you see that our principals, I told them at 6:30 they can leave, and I was a little conflicted with the highlights, and so Dr. Gray led that, as did Ms. Wallace. But just this week alone, a third of the principals that you see on the screen have been highlighted in the news for various reasons. And even next week already, Jardine Middle and Elementary are being highlighted for their mental health program. And this week, I think we've had 5 or 6 people highlighted as well. So if you are watching the board meeting tonight, please go on our social media, repost those items. There's a parent highlighted from Quincy and Topeka High. And of course, as you talked about fine arts, all of the high schools won awards in various areas yesterday at the Capitol Marching Band. So we are excited about just the work they're doing. With that superintendent's report, that would explain why enrollment, while we did still have this projected loss of enrollment, it wasn't the loss that we thought we'd have, and we had more students enroll in some schools than we anticipated. It's because we have some pretty amazing leaders. So we want to say thank you, leaders. And if you're still on the screen, you are freed up. So at 6:30, you can go if you would like. Of course, feel free to stay on with the rest of the board meeting if you'd like to do that as well. So Dr. Kip is going to share a little bit about enrollment. We'll go ahead and pull up that slide. Now, we do know that normally we kind of talk a little bit about special needs index and things like that. This will be the first time the newer board members may have really heard some of those. So I asked him to create a PowerPoint around this a little bit this time, go through some of the areas in enrollment. And then when he gets to the slide to talk about special needs index, he's going to explain what that is when he gets there. Dr. Kip, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to give you an enrollment update. We just surpassed the official count date, September 20th. So of course, all these numbers are unaudited, but they are going to be pretty close to what I'll be presenting today. This graph, I always think context is important. So this is the last 6 years of Topeka Public Schools enrollment. The orange line is what I predicted, and the blue line is what we actually achieved as a district. So you can kind of see some blips where I was off a little bit, but for the most part, it's pretty square on. But I think the more important part is to kind of see a general trend towards the downside. This year, we are at 13,058 students, and that's reflected on the right side there. And I'd actually projected 12,972. So as Dr. Anderson mentioned, we were slightly higher than my predictions. So that's always a good thing. And I know the principals were out there recruiting and trying to reach out and make sure we counted every single kid and get those kids enrolled and engaged. Also, to kind of further illustrate what's going on in the state, this was a study done by KASB that kind of projects out the next 4 years of enrollment throughout the state. We see a very kind of similar trend line, quite a drop off as we get into the 2024 school year. That's over these 4 years, that's a net loss of 24,000 students in the state of Kansas. So, you know, my point is really just to kind of put this into context that many districts throughout the state are in a current enrollment decline. I also thought it was important, you know, when we're talking about enrollment and demographics, to kind of illustrate where we are compared to the state. We are definitely a district of diversity. You know, if you look at the green or the white students, and over on the state level, that's the majority of the state. But if you look at, for example, African American, I mean, we're almost 3 times the density of African Americans in our district than in the entire state of Kansas. Hispanic is another very fastly growing group. Although we may be declining in enrollment, our Hispanic population is not. They marked other other is really just your smaller groups like Asian, Pacific Islander, multiracial. So I think I'm just presenting this not only to illustrate our diversity, but we have almost 225 kids that don't even live in our district that apply for a transfer to come to Topeka Public Schools. And we talk to every single one of those parents, to make sure they're not, the grass is going to be greener over here necessarily, but a lot of them do express that, not only our offerings here in Topeka Public Schools, but also the reality of what they're going to see in the workplace. They're going to see diversity such as this. I think the diversity is one of our core strengths. So I put together about 6 bullet points that kind of summarize where we're at as of today. I'm very excited to see an increase in the state pre-K enrollment. Despite declining numbers on the elementary side, we may see a boost at the pre-K level. And so this may be a temporary blip. And if those preschoolers stick with us, maybe that'll help boost up some of our enrollment down in the years to come. The reality is we did see the largest decrease was at elementary school. Fortunately, middle school and high school enrollment is stable. In particular, our virtual program has increased significantly. Again, I don't want to pin down any numbers because they're still being calculated and turned in tomorrow. But I can tell you that if you ask Dr. Grimes, she definitely can feel the increase in changes, and the fact that we are a K-12 virtual program. We do have kids outside of Shawnee County that are actually enrolled with us. So I think that program has a lot of promise. It could be quite an opportunity to leverage or offset some of this enrollment decline. Another thing near and dear to my heart is the dual language growth. We are currently at where those preschoolers were several years ago. They will be graduating this coming spring. So those preschoolers way back in 2019 have matriculated up and are now going to be graduating 12th grade at Topeka High is our dual language school there. So that's going to be exciting to witness that, a long time coming. Another thing, like I mentioned, the Hispanic population is still growing within our district. The English language learners, those number of hours and people are also increasing. So, from a fiduciary point of view, the more contact hours we have, the more funding and weightings that we get for offering those services to those kids. And finally, our career and tech ed hours are very stable. We've had more kids getting into TCalc and earning industry credentials, which are not really reflected in this. But despite the declining enrollment, our career and tech ed popularity is still on the rise. So as Dr. Anderson mentioned, the special needs index is kind of unique to Topeka Public Schools from what I've talked to my cohorts in other districts. What we do is we have an internal index composed of different domains from poverty, ELL, special ed, mobility, which give us kind of an index score of which of our schools are the greatest in need. So every year we update that based on changing demographics, changing student populations. And that gives us an opportunity to target resources to those higher need schools. For example, Quincy is one of our highest special needs schools. We also do that for secondary, with Robinson being one of the higher ones. And I believe it's kind of cut off here, but I believe Highland Park and Cap City are two of our higher special needs schools. So this has been a really good tool to help with staffing, help right-sizing classrooms. And I believe it's been we've been using this for about, I don't know, 5 to 8 years. And it's really been a helpful tool throughout this process. And that is it for my quick overview of where we're at on enrollment. I'm willing to take any questions or concerns you have.
Dr. Mickelson.
Thank you, Dr. Kipp. One question on that last chart, the special needs index. I saw Scott Dual Language School had 24% ELL, and that was surprisingly low to me. I thought it would be higher.
We're going to bring that chart back up if we could, Mr. Gallen, that slide.
It was the highest elementary school with dual or English language learners. So I guess I'm not totally certain what defines an English language learner.
Well, keep in mind at Scott, it's a dual language model, and not all those kids. You have English L1 kids, and those kids wouldn't be getting ELL services. But the
Gomez model is half English, native English speakers, half native Spanish speakers, I thought. Is that?
That is correct. The goal is a 50-50 blend. Now, not all those Spanish speakers qualify for ELL services.
Okay, that's where I thought the answer. So why wouldn't they qualify? I guess.
And Dr. Mickelson, if I may, Dr. Mejia is on. So if we can allow her to give us a little voice to her building in terms of why wouldn't a student qualify for EL services? And the question, Dr. Mejia, really is the EL population being so low. Can you give a little very brief and concise response as to why they wouldn't qualify and why it's so low?
Sure. Students might not qualify for EL services because when they are assessed per the home language survey, they are competent in English enough that they do not qualify for such services. However, their native language is Spanish, which is the trigger for them being assessed for EL services. But not everybody whose native language is Spanish is not competent in English.
Our preschools are so good that they're learning both languages. Well, I assume that's probably the right answer, right? Our preschools are so good. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Does that clarify for you, Dr. Mickelson and Dr.
I was ignorant to why they would not have more ELL kids there, but that makes sense. So
yes, so our 50-50 is based on native language, not necessarily on their English proficiency.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
And Dr. Mejia, can you just give an example of a family that even if they didn't go to preschool, so we all kind of know, why, what's that typical family that might be native to the language, but, would not necessarily qualify for EL?
Sure. So it might be a family whose parents are bilingual and who use both languages at home. Therefore, the kids have acquired that language as sometimes the dominant language, even though the native is Spanish. Does that answer your question, Dr. Mickelson?
And that's not unusual for Scott. So the dominant language might be English, even though the native language is Spanish.
So in having a dominant English scholar with a native language of Spanish, there's a thing, you cannot change native language. So we still give instruction in the native language, even though the target language might be the dominant, to make sure that the basis of their learning is in the language that they started speaking first and that they continue to speak at home. Because the stronger their L1, and again, it cannot be changed, the stronger the target language.
Here's the exciting thing about, Topeka, Kansas, and really the census for 2020. We are becoming much more of a diverse area, and the more that we have that level of diversity, the more bilingual, families we're seeing in Topeka, Kansas. So it may be less of a rarity to have a student to come to school, even at preschool, knowing both languages. And that's the preschools across Topeka, and we're seeing that across Topeka. Are there other questions for Dr. Kipp on enrollment?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kipp, for that report. So the first cohort of dual language who are now graduating, can you tell us, do you know what that exact number is?
I knew somebody was going to ask that. I don't have that handy, but I would love to recognize them in some fashion this spring. I can certainly get that to the group of who, obviously there's attrition along the way. So I can tell you that original class of, 20 preschoolers, it's probably looks a lot different than it did, that it will this spring. So I'll have to get back to you on that number, but yeah, it's exciting that 13 years later, they're graduating.
Yes, muy emocionante. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Kipp, to what do you ascribe the decline in school children population in the upcoming years? Is it rural?
Well, I can only speculate in terms of what I see, in my colleagues that I've talked to in Wichita and Shawnee Mission. Blue Valley's declining as well. I think some of these urban districts are not immune to this decline. I think it is hitting the rural districts as well. But yeah, I mean, it is a economic factor as well. I think, if you look at the business and industry here in Topeka versus 6 years ago, there is probably a market change. I think the Greater Topeka Partnership is reaching out to citizens here in Topeka to try to gather input on how to make Topeka or the Shawnee County community better. But I'll be honest, from a demographic point of view, the lower birth rates, I've read a lot of research that the younger generations are waiting to have children. So, there's so many layers to develop a hypothesis on why this is declining. But, I think we're getting in a position where we could try to mitigate that somewhat with our virtual program, expanding statewide. But yeah, it's, there are some drops and some concerns we're going to have to deal with here in the upcoming couple of years.
I can't help but when I see that graph of our declining enrollment over the last 3 or 4 years and feel somewhat sensitive to it, like what could we have done differently? But I'm certain if you look at the population of the state of Kansas, the population of the city of Topeka, population of Shawnee County, those numbers would parallel that enrollment decline. I think that's bigger picture is it's not an
anomaly.
Yeah. Statewide, I think the numbers are going to be similar. People are, to your point, are just having fewer kids, they're having them later. Our state population is declining, but an increase, I think, is what I've read anyway. So
yeah, I would agree. There is some net migration out as well in the state. So yeah, whatever we can do to bring more kids in, and maybe there'll be a COVID baby boom. Who knows?
Well, and one of the things that Dr. Kipp and the past boards have known that we've started a number of programs which we believe, Dr. Kipp, myself, and leadership team has had some positive impact. The college prep has been one of those programs that families that might have otherwise left or chosen not to move to the college prep from private school had not have selected that. This year, our elementary, which is a highlight, virtual, we're one of 12 in the state. There are only 12 K-12 virtual programs. Our elementary, as you know, was piloted last year with 15 students. This year we have 98 students, approximately between 90 and 98 students. So, those are some programs that give parents who might be homeschooling opportunities, or parents who just want other options that are in other places. I think the big piece is we want to encourage people to stay in Kansas. So because when we look at the number across the state, it's really about keeping talent in Kansas. So we will continue to do things such as give our students contracts when they graduate high school so that they already know they have a job here waiting for them, and really working on that pipeline so people stay and they have families right here in Kansas. That's really our goal. And the more that we can do that, the more we will likely have young people continuing right here in our state and in our schools. Topeka Public Schools, as of this month, is the school district that is in partnership with KDHE and JAG, that's Jobs for American Graduates, piloting the paid internship program. And that's expected to spread throughout the state, but we're excited about even being a pilot for that, so that, again, it's just another opportunity to keep young people right here. That paid internship with KSDE is really focused on IT, which is one of the labor force predictions of need in the future, healthcare and technology. So, our student enrollment really mirrors the county and the city, and we're going to continue to try those methods. I believe Mr. Munoz may have had a conversation earlier in the year with demographics about, just surveying when people leave. Did they leave because of a new job? When they leave the state and when they withdraw. And so as families withdraw, we do ask questions, but we really are looking at this year potentially asking some demographic kinds of questions, particularly when they're leaving the state, just to help inform us and for us to help inform the GTP, the Greater Topeka Partnership, on what we can do to keep people right here in Kansas. Are there other questions about enrollment? So we're glass half full, but we're glad that we're not at the 12,000 mark and we still stayed above 13,000. But we have continued opportunity to think of innovative ways to not just retain our students, but to help grow this community and keep people in jobs and in Kansas as part of a template for economic prosperity. Are there any more questions for us? Not seeing any more questions on enrollment. I'm sorry.
I had my hand raised, but I know you didn't see me. Dr. Kipp, of the students enrolled in our K-12 virtual, you said that there are some who are not within our attendance area. Do you have that number? And kids maybe in Wichita and Oklahoma are attending our K-12 school?
Well, I can tell you it's definitely in the state of Kansas. By virtue of the virtual charter, we can't offer services outside the state, but definitely I know there are some down around the Wichita area. I wouldn't say, I could probably count on two hands how many kids are outside of Shawnee County. However, I know there was some marketing that was done throughout the state, and we have competition with other virtual programs, in Western Kansas as well. So, how can we make our program above and beyond of some of our competitors? And that's an area of opportunity that maybe we dive into. I mean, it's much better, I think, in my opinion, to have a homeschool program that has an established curriculum with certified teachers. So the goal is, I think, to maybe capture some of those families that just said, COVID's too much, I just want to homeschool my kids. Well, why not do that with a structured program free of charge? And, I think since it's so new, I think we're only going to see that grow and grow. And that's what I'm hoping.
Ms. Stewart Campbell, we will get you those numbers in terms of, how many are Shawnee County, Topeka Public Schools, Shawnee County, how many are not Topeka Public Schools, but live in the county, and then how many live in other spaces. So we'll add that to, we send you all a Thursday highlight of some numbers. So we'll add that to that space. So you have that document as well, or we'll just report out on it in a couple of weeks.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Not seeing any other questions on enrollment. That really is our main report for this evening. I do want to mention Miss Morrissey, which I didn't say it in the highlights, but she's getting an Artie Award tonight. All of us are at the board meeting, so we can't be at the Artie Awards, but do know that she, in about an hour or so, or I guess it's probably happening right now, Topeka High won its Arts Connect. Topeka High won an Artie Award. It was in the community news, so I know many of you already read that, but given the principal recognition this evening, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that's where she is this evening during the formal board meeting. I'm going to turn it back over to our board president at this time to proceed with other discussion items that we might need to address related to COVID and other items. That does conclude our report.
We do have the one discussion item, correct?
14.1.
So, Ms. Stewart Campbell, can you repeat your question, and then we'll, I know Mr. Robbins is on, and we'll talk a little bit about, and I believe Ms. Vodder, if she's not on, she'll be joining us momentarily, and then we'll answer some questions about our COVID testing program.
Thank you. I just wanted to know what it's going to look like. Like, will there be people testing in every building? Just the logistics, and how many testers are we talking about? What are the under what conditions is somebody tested? So I just want some education on it. Thank you.
So we have two things that are currently occurring. I'll share a little bit, and then as Ms. Vodder joins, if she wants to add to that, she certainly can. And Mr. Robbins will talk a little bit about our vendor. So we started the test to know, test to learn, test to play programs. However, Shawnee County has a very precise guideline about who can be tested as it relates to quarantine. And so with that in mind, as we are testing, we do have testing kits in all of our schools. We also have hired a vendor. Mr. Robbins will share with you a little bit about the vendor. We started with the vendor not knowing if our nurses could keep up with the amount of testing. And so we started with added people who could actually help with that. Mr. Robbins, do you want to share a little bit about the vendor service? We haven't needed a great deal of that, but you want to start talking about that?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Yes, the vendor that we contracted with is out of California. They specialize in providing medical staff for testing, particularly when it comes to COVID testing. We had reached out to them and they had assured us that they could provide what we were looking for, which was medical assistance that could test in our school buildings. They assured us that in a very short period of time, because we were trying to ramp up and have the resources available so that we could begin testing as quickly as possible, that they could provide 15 medical assistants that we could spread out across the district, along with our current staff and any additional staff that we could hire here locally that we could use to test either students or staff. The medical assistance that they were to provide us, since we did put a deadline on what they would be able to provide in terms of resources and the time period that they could make them available, they thought that they could provide 15 in actuality, and 15 is what is on the contract that the board is looking at. We actually have only 4 that are here and 4 that are serving in that capacity at this point in time. So the contract that you see was good up to 15 FTE, but we only have 4 that are actually working in our buildings and providing services to us, 4 full-time and 1 part-time medical assistant. They did have more numbers, but what they were going to provide were those who were only certified as CNAs or CMAs, which we were not able to use for them to test on their own. They had to have a medical assistant certification. So even though they may have had numbers, they didn't have numbers that meant all of the qualifications that we needed in order to perform the tests.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. So that led us to some partnerships. Everything's an opportunity. So, Ms. Stewart Campbell, we began partnering with 2 groups. One, Washburn University. We just called to see if their nurses who are getting their baccalaureate in nursing would qualify. And what we learned is they actually finished all the requirements for a medical assistant within their first year. So we sent them the job application, and we do have some of the nursing students from Washburn actually now working with us in the morning, so that they come at the beginning of the day and they help with some of the testing at some of the schools. And then since then, still posted on our website is a medical assistant and LPN. So we also ended up hiring about 4 LPN/medical assistants. Either they were one or the other. So between who we hired, the partnership with Washburn, and now the vendor, Mrs. Vouter feels like we are, well covered in what we'll need for testing at this point. The other thing we want to remind you is that our University of Kansas clinic at Topeka High is able to test. So the testing is not just COVID testing, but it is also testing for influenza, as well as COVID, as well as, I believe there's one other area. Am I correct, Ms. Wallace, under the grant that they can test for?
Yes.
Do you remember the other area, all 3 areas?
Are we
Strep?
strep
Yeah.
and flu and COVID?
So with those 3 areas, any of these testers can test for all 3, and they have kits to be able to do that for all 3. I don't see Ms. Vouter on yet, but I do know that she shared she was joining just to add any other questions. But does that answer the initial questions of, yes, all schools can test, and we have added staff available to test as needed, as well as a vehicle that we have available, but we haven't really needed that to be able to go to different schools to test if we have a student in need.
Yes, thank you. That does answer my initial question. And I'm also curious to know when and how is it decided who gets tested?
So that is decided in part based on the very structured guideline provided by the county. And if I may, I will leave that to Ms. Vouter to address. All schools in Shawnee County, my understanding, have been following that, or at least our discussion has been that we've all been following that. So with that, Mrs. Vouter has given guidance to all the nurses about who actually can be tested. And it's not just students, it's also teachers who would otherwise be quarantined. Keeping in mind, generally, you don't have to quarantine if you are vaccinated. So we are giving boosters to all of our staff that have signed up, which about 300 have signed up in the last 24 hours this month. So we're offering the booster, and our staff seems to certainly be interested in that, and any staff members' families, but that allows them to be exempt from the quarantine. But for those that do need to test on a daily basis, they also, staff and students, can do that. Mr. Gallant, I'm going to ask if Mrs. Votter has logged in at this time. I know she was planning to log in a moment ago.
I do not yet see her.
All right. So we will defer any other questions for her so that she can show that guideline. And I believe that guideline as well is also listed on our website. If you go to the website and you go to the frequently asked questions, then you'll see right under the, and Mr. Gowan, can you go to that space? And then you'll see the Shawnee County link to COVID testing and the Test to Know program. And that'll also give you some guidance about who's quarantined, who's not, who goes into the Test to Know program. Although hearing from her will be probably a lot simpler. So on our website, for those families that are looking at the website right now, at the very, there are multiple tabs where you can click on a variety of things. And I think we're going to go to that. Either he'll have to scroll up away from district news and go to the very front, and you'll see all of those tabs. So you'll see the TPS Parent Resource COVID, and you also see the CDC guidelines. You can click on either one of those, and it's going to take you to that Test to Know program.
How are we paying for the testing?
Mrs. Wallace's team wrote a grant to Mrs. Kramer. Well, KDHE approached us about submitting a grant. We submitted the grant, and within a week, we were awarded $3 million, which allows us to use grant funds for this testing program. Mrs. Votter, the question that was still standing was regarding how do we determine who gets tested? We're going to go back to that screen that we were just on. And I believe it's also located there, and you may want to navigate us to that section for parents who are looking for this as well. So who gets to be tested in this Test to Know or Test to Learn program? Is that on, that's on the Health Department guidance, I take it, under Shawnee County, is that correct?
That is a piece of it, Dr. Anderson. It also includes guidelines from KDHE on who can be tested. And so our plan is that we will test students or staff by request. We also are doing close contact testing for students and staff who are close contacts to someone who's tested positive, and they test daily for 10 days, which is their normal close contact quarantine period. And they test first thing in the morning, and provided they're negative and have no symptoms, then they go on to class and continue to participate in their daily activities. They do have to wear a mask all day, which we all are doing that anyway, so that's really not a hardship. Today we tested 3 students for the Test to Stay, Test to Learn, Test to Play option. And so we haven't had large numbers, but we have had a couple of students every day that we've been testing for the last couple of weeks. So I look for those numbers to increase as more parents become aware of the option that is available.
So as we turn it back to Ms. Votter with a prior question, and we'll go off the screen in a minute, but if you see where it says Parent Resource Center, for parents that are watching, that's, you click on that and you'll see the guidelines there as well. We'll go ahead and take that on off of the screen, and that will remain on our website all year under the link that we just shared with you. Ms. Votter, I mentioned that you also have, at this time, you feel that you have enough nurses between the vendor, Washburn, and who we've hired to cover the testing needs. Is that accurate?
Yes, I think we're doing really well with that right now. We have 18 staff members between the agency staff and the LPNs that we have hired here in the last 2 to 3 weeks. I think we have enough to mobilize additional help as needed out throughout the district. If one building would need additional help, we can do that. And mileage is part of the grant funding, so that would be reimbursed to anyone who travels between the buildings to help with testing.
Are there other questions, Ms. Campbell or Ms. Stewart Campbell or anyone else?
Thank you for all this. Very useful. I'm not sure what the difference is between test to learn, test to stay, test to know, or are they used interchangeably?
There is somewhat of an interchangeable terminology there. The test to know would be if I just want to know if I'm positive. So I may not have symptoms and I maybe feel like I've been exposed and I just want to know to make sure I'm not positive. So I want to be tested. That would be a test to know situation. It could also apply to our athletic teams. If they were to be tested prior to a sporting event or choir or band or any of those organizations to make sure that those students are negative before they participate in their event. The test to learn, test to play, that's Shawnee County terminology. And those are for the close contacts, for students that are close contacts. And they get to stay in school provided they're negative and asymptomatic. So the terminology is kind of confusing. It basically all means the same thing, that anyone can be tested to find out where they stand.
Thank you so much, Nurse Botter, for all this. Thank you.
If there are no other questions regarding the testing program, we would ask, and Mrs. Cope can guide on the motion so that the testing item that was listed under consent can still be approved. So we would ask for the board to make a motion to still approve that particular item. Ms. Cope, can you guide in that language and where that needs to occur?
Sure, there just needs to be a motion to approve item is 18.1, is that right? 14.1. Never been good with numbers, folks. Sorry. So make a motion to approve that separately from the consent agenda.
All right. I move that the board approves 14.1, approve the COVID testing services.
Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, ready for the vote.
In favor? Yes. Motion carries. The item is approved.
Thank you. And we do have one action item. And that is to approval of the major maintenance proposals for 2021, 2022, presented by Mr. Rob Sykes.
Move to accept the major maintenance proposal.
The move in second. Any discussion? Okay, ready for the vote.
Vote is open. All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. And the next item is board comments. Dr. Bonebrick, start with you, sir.
Last Saturday, I had lunch with the executive director of Jeff Bezos Space Operations. And he informed me, having discovered I was on a school board, and the best school board in America, but they're sending a rocket ship up and it will have postcards signed and written by school children. And they will go up into outer space and come back with a postmark from outer space. And Billy Wallace has emailed back and forth, and we will get 7,000 postcards, Billy, for 2nd through 8th graders in School District 501 to go up into outer space. I don't know if they will have singe marks from reentry or what, but they will be postmarked from outer space. So the children in 501, 2nd through 8th grade will have a souvenir from outer space. I don't know when exactly this will happen. They're not sure when exactly this will happen, but I think that's cool.
Just a couple of comments. District Health Council met this past week, and Ms. Wallace, if you have any corrections on what I will report, but I just wanted the board to know that it's a very active council, and that we had a representative from Oral, Kansas, and basically they are working very hard to get water collectors, bottled water things in all the schools in Kansas. And what they have found is that kids that are hydrated learn much better and much easier. And they were very impressed with our progress on that. And we thank Mr. Robbins for that. Well, they didn't go that far, but we do have, and we have okayed multiple stations for water bottle collection. And so the kids carry the bottles, and the phys ed people were saying how they encourage all drinking activity, and the kids carry the bottles in the classroom. And so in any case, it was a very good thing. And we had some things that we'll be looking into a little bit closer, but you have anything you want to add to that, Billy?
Just that schools have really found the water filling stations really advantageous.
So good for us. And the other thing I would like to just tell you that I will be probably gone next time unless Mr. Gallen can Zoom me in, and that's possible. But I get to follow my grandchild who's playing hockey all around the nation as a member of the 14 and under Colorado team. She is an excellent student, straight A's, but she has to fly to different areas. And so Grandma and I are going to go follow them and help them out in some of the places that they go. So I may be gone once or twice during the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Dr. Mickelson.
Two quick things. I would love in a future meeting to have a brief update on our status of our busing. I received a couple of emails from some patrons and just want to know, I know there's challenges across the country hiring people, and I just so I can speak knowledgeably to respond to these patrons. If we could get a brief update, that'd be great. And then in today's New York Times, they had an article about how Pfizer had submitted a proposal to the FDA to get approval for vaccines for children 5 to 11. There's about 6 million kids that age who've been tested positive for COVID. We have a bunch of children who have to learn remotely primarily because of exposure to a known positive or a potential exposure. And if they're vaccinated, then as long as they're asymptomatic, they don't have to leave school. And so there's a definite advantage to that. So I'd encourage, they thought the FDA would meet like at the end of the 26th of this month, I think, and they thought they could have a decision before the end by Halloween, is what the article said. There's some definite advantages to keeping our kids in school, and so patrons and parents out there, it looks like there might be a vaccine available for your child. So I'd encourage patrons to take advantage. That's all I have.
Campbell.
So I have a feel-good story for everyone. Since our last meeting, there's a 16-year-old boy who's an unaccompanied minor. He came from Nicaragua and found his way to Topeka Public Schools. And because Nicaragua is in chaos. Things are very, very bad there. So this amazing young man found his way on his own. He had some help, but he found his way to Topeka, and he's living with his older brother, and he is now enrolled in Avondale Academy. And our Topeka Public Schools, he works 6 days a week. He has to work 6 days a week. He's got to earn money to pay bills, and he's trying to send some money back home to his family in Nicaragua. But he is enrolled in Topeka Public Schools, and our EL department, I think this is very cool. This kid was able to get his transcript from his high school in Nicaragua, and Topeka Public Schools very quickly was able to translate it and like evaluate it and see what credits he's missing, and discovered that he's only like 5 or 6 credits away from graduating. And so this was a kid who first thought, oh, this is, I'm not going to get my high school diploma. How do I get my transcript? How am I going to do this? I have to work 6 days a week. And now he knows, thanks to Topeka Public Schools, that he's not far at all from graduating, and he can get his high school diploma through Avondale Academy. And I want to bring him in here sometime and speak to us so you can hear him. He's incredible. He wants to be a nurse. He loves Topeka. He thinks it's like this amazing place, and he wants to stay here and be a bilingual nurse. He's living with his older brother. Yeah, he's in Central Topeka. So we should have him in here and you could hear his story. He's really, really inspiring. So he can, well, I'll let him talk for himself. Anyway, I just wanted to share this story with you. I'm really, really excited. And I'm going to go to his graduation and I'm going to cry. All right, that's all. Thanks.
Let's see. Again, congratulations to Jacqueline Ortega as a senior of the month from Highland Park High School. She seems like she has a bright future and just one of many students we have here at 501. So I want to congratulate her on that recognition. Thank you to all of our principals in our district. They, as was said earlier, it's an incredible job, and they are committed to making sure our schools are excellent and to deliver quality education. And obviously they're one of a large team that do this day in, day out. So we're incredibly fortunate to have them here. And I'm going to be sending an email to everyone personally, just to thanking them. Let's take a look here. Second thing, I wanted to add to the conversation about Topeka and our enrollment as one indicator of a larger issue in Topeka, which I think we all recognize. And earlier today, I was in conversation at the Greater Topeka Partnership at a meeting, and it's not just us and schools who are worried about this. I think we'll find allies, individuals who are equally concerned about this in the business community. In fact, somebody from a well-known business here, they want to make sure that our schools are successful because our graduates go on to work in their companies. And so I think we'll find that we're not alone when we want to try and make sure our schools are top notch, and that we'll find willing allies in making sure that Topeka is a place that attracts families. We know it's a great, you can have a great life here, very economically, compared to other places. And so there's this momentum 2027 that's working on this. And I'd encourage us all to be part of that conversation and make sure that the public school system is an active partner, a willing participant in that conversation. I attended Topeka High School and their recognition of 150 years, which is amazing. It's hard to believe that it's been, for me at least, 20 plus years, but it's been a lot. And I think what impacted me most was seeing individuals who had been there 40, 60 years ago, but were still excited about coming back. And I had the pleasure of being able to take my mother-in-law to see this building. She had only seen it from the outside, amazed at what is this place, when she arrived here to Topeka. So having her see the building and see the history that comes along with it, I think was all inspiring for her, and us being able to maintain it to such a degree, I think is one of many things to be proud of in Topeka. And lastly, I want to make reference to individuals who have donated to 501, including Downtown Topeka, Rotary, Topeka Community Foundation, Southwest Publishing, and Ms. Megan Waldner, who all made contributions of varying amounts. We appreciate you supporting 501, and we'll do our best to make sure and to use those donations to further kids' education. That's all.
Thank you. Mine are comments are brief and short. I went to support McEachran's fundraiser. I think it was Monday or Tuesday at La Roca's. Never been there. It's a nice place. I highly recommend it if you want to try a new eating establishment here in town. And also, I just wanted to recognize my granddaughter, Camille Williams, who is a second grader over at Williams. She was named Wildcat of the Week last week. So made her Paw proud. So with that, is there anything else for the good of the cause?
Reverend Williams, I did want to mention, I know that Dr. Mickelson shared before the meeting the update on the bus, and Ms. Cope shared it's fine to do that in this space. If we may, Mr. Robbins can give a brief update. He's prepared for that since Dr. Mickelson did reach out before the meeting. We can give a longer update at the next meeting, but just to arm you with and empower you with some general information as the year started. And Mr. Campbell, Dr. Gray is going to ask you for information on that student. That'd be a great story to cover. So as soon as the meeting is over, he just wants to get those details. Mr. Robbins, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Dr. Mickelson, as far as transportation, we continue with our vendor, Kansas Central, to have challenges. Most of those challenges are related to their struggles with trying to have adequate staffing to serve all of the routes that we need to run in order to provide transportation to our students, particularly if we want to try to reestablish the boundary that we had historically been serving, that in transporting any student who lived in excess of 1 mile from the school that they were attending. We are still currently using the distance of 1.75 miles. We're doing that for a couple of reasons. One has to do with the number of routes that we're able to run. That number is down in the 60 to 65 category, when historically we have ran 79 to 80 routes on a daily basis. And it's also due to the fact that since we have been in a pandemic, we have been social distancing on our school buses, which has cut down on our capacity per bus, per route that we run. So in order to accommodate those two things, we've had to move the distance and keep the distance at the 1.75 ever since we have been in the pandemic. In order to reduce that, we would have to be able to staff and run additional routes, which we are not able to do. Kansas Central, they have been successful in being able to recruit some drivers, but as they recruit some, they attrit some. That's either through drivers that leave for one reason or another, or drivers that aren't available because of being on FMLA. When you combine that with attendance that is not at the level that you would like to see a business operate at on a daily basis, that makes it even more challenging. So routes have had to be doubled up, which has resulted in students arriving to school late, buses arriving late to pick up students at the end of the day to transport them home. We have had students that have been dropped off for home delivery as late as 7 p.m. We have had students that have arrived at school as late as 10 a.m. in the morning on some occasions. So late buses have become a daily situation that many of our schools and our administrators and staffs have had to deal with. Same way with late buses in the afternoon associated with dismissal. Also, to make matters worse, as we try to address learning loss through the funds that we have received, and we have after school programs, those are additional trips that have to be scheduled. Sporting activities are additional trips that have to be scheduled. Band activities, band competition as recent as last night created some challenges as far as picking up those band members to transport them back to their home school. So it continues to be a challenge. I wish I could sit here and say that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I cannot, based on everything that we know as of today, when it comes to the staffing. We are in hopes that we might be able to assist with the recruiting as we made bus drivers part of our premium recruitment plan that we've put in place for our own staff. But we certainly have not seen any results, any positive results from that at this point.
So with that update, Dr. Mickelson, I don't know if that answers several of the questions that you have. One of the items that I will say that we are better positioned than some, and that we don't have, our vendor has been able to bring bus drivers in from other states. Unlike places that run their own bus service, then they only have the staff that are employed. So that's one piece that Mr. Robbins and I both looked at as we were evaluating vendor services. We are at least in the position in which, despite their staffing issues, they've been able to bring people from other areas into Kansas to keep us rolling to the capacity we have now. Did that answer your question, sir? And I know you asked it in advance, so he was well prepared tonight to answer that.
I appreciate you taking the time to respond to that. I appreciate. And then are the apps that the parents can use to track the bus, are those operational or operating as they should?
As far as I know, it is operational now. I can tell you that that has been off and on.
Okay.
As far as its availability.
Okay.
So it has not been a consistent tool that parents have had available to them this year.
Okay. I appreciate the update so I can respond to this patron that has written me a couple times, and I trust that you're in frequent communication with Kansas Central to try to figure out solutions to these problems. So
yes, I believe that.
I fully believe it. And know you're doing your best. So thank you.
Reverend Williams, I believe that's the only question we needed to respond to. And Dr. Mickelson, as you respond to the parent, if you can copy Mr. Robbins and I, that way we can also give some personal contact as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything else? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.